And so for us, a lot of our clients come from all over the country, and they were looking for trademark attorneys that could help them protect their brands, whether it's goods or services. And so I saw it begin to scale the business.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something in me that was, that doubt, that fear. Like, you know what, maybe, we have a good job. It's a steady paycheck. Like, what if you have a bad month? What if you have a bad 2 months? What if?
Mm-hmm.
You have kids now. Now you have kids are in the picture. Do the responsible thing. It wasn't until 2022 that I had a conversation with HR after coming off of paternity leave. I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to go back.
Yeah.
And I decided, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm going to take the risk. And fortune favors the bold, right? And I think that risk, I had to make that conscious decision to take the risk. That's why you get the reward, because like you said, you're all in.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to be all in, and it's been an amazing time experience. Our company has grown over 100% this year alone. Wow. It's been a fantastic journey. And hopefully it's a tale that, you have to be all in. You have to be willing to take the risk. And I told Zara, I was like, well, we'll just build as we fly, right? Take the leap of faith and build on the way down.
It's interesting. When we were doing our initial talk, I've thought a lot about that conversation since then. And one of the things you said then, and you just said it again today, is that you wanted to do the responsible thing for your kids. And I think that the most responsible thing that anyone can do is to show their kids what it feels like to be alive in the workplace. Because there's just so much out there right now, so many people who are literally not all in, but they feel chained to their paycheck, their titles, the lifestyle that they have, whatever. And because of that, quote unquote, security, and we know that nothing in this world is secure, but the perceived security, they don't take that leap to get out there. And I remember talking about the what ifing, and I think I mentioned to you that I come from a long line of champion what ifers.
Yes.
And so how did you overcome that? I mean, what was it that actually pushed you over the edge?
It was my wife.
As usual. I'm very proud of you, Zara. Very good. She's
like, listen, just sit down and just do the cost benefit analysis and just think about it. You're leaving not just money on the table, but kind of like what you said, you're miserable. And what is that quality of life doing to your family?
That's right.
And coming home upset because you had a really bad day. I remember there was a long period of time, every Friday, for whatever reason, we would get into fights. And it's usually like the end of the week and it's like your happiest days. But I think I had just taken all the stress from that week and I just was over it. And, what you said is really profound, because I think as parents, we really want our kids to be alive and to find that passion. And, you'll preach that, you'll really impugn that upon them. But unless you're living that life, then kids learn by example. They need to see you living that life in order for it to really affect them. So, my wife, I have to give her credit for really being the ultimate risk taker.
I am a risk taker.
But I listened to your counsel, and it's been great. It's been
wonderful.
Great. Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that I speak about with new people going into the workplace right now, is to really look at the different positions, understand what skills you're building as you go from place to place to place, and make sure you're highlighting that. And again, for folks that are just coming into the workplace or who are recent arrivals, they're operating in a world that they don't really understand. They don't talk about this in school.
No.
So when you're counseling people in your organization, what do you say to them, to the new arrivals? What's advice that you give them?
What I would say is, if you are new to the business, one of the ways that I found that I was successful was to say yes. Say yes to opportunities. Say yes to putting yourself in a position where it might be uncomfortable, but that means you're in a growth mode, right? You're in growth mode. Say yes to project work. Say yes to being able to interact and establish credibility and build relationships with people outside your day-to-day. So saying yes is really important, and being open to those opportunities.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I agree with that open-mindedness. Again, just thinking about a few years back when I was working with a variety of people who had just arrived out of school. For whatever reason, and I don't think that this is uncommon, they arrived with this idea of this very defined career path that they were going to accomplish. I'm going to be here at this point and here at that point. And I found myself breaking their bubble a little bit.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
It's not linear.
It doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
And I also found myself having more than one conversation with many of them about this idea of checking the ego. Okay, you've graduated. Good for you. You've joined a great firm. Good for you. Now come in with the rest of us and roll up your sleeves and start to learn, because that's what it's all about. Every day there's something new. And no one has that advantage in this environment as far as I'm concerned. The world is just changing too fast. You can't say that, oh, I don't need to learn that because I've already done something similar to that in the past. What's your thought on that?
No, I completely agree. I mean, along with saying yes, and that really means being open to learning, right? Being curious.
Yes.
I think that is a critical success factor for anyone joining a new organization, right? To establish your network, to establish credibility, to show that you are adaptable, that you can learn. I think that there's also a lot to be said for taking risks. And I know that just sounds very cliche, right? Oh, you have to take risks to get ahead. But really what taking risks means is actually having the confidence that if it doesn't work out, you can fall back on yourself, right?
Yes.
Like you are self-confident enough to know that if you take a risk and it doesn't work out, you can adapt. And having that self-confidence is something that I think I lacked. When I look at my early part of my career, I really lacked that. You know what I mean? That confidence that I could make it work out. That comes with maturity and with experience, I think.
It does. And the more experience you have, the better you get at it. But let's just say this, that I do not know anyone, either in my current life or in history, that got it right the first time. Nobody does that. Nobody. And even if you got it over the line, you didn't do it perfectly. Perfection, optimization, that is something that comes from treading that wheel over and over again and finding the nuance that's going to get you to that perfect spot. But it doesn't happen magically. And it takes a lot of effort and grit and maybe even a couple tears and disappointments and frustration and all the other stuff that goes along with that. But when you finally get there, that triumph is so cool.
It is sweet.
Is the coolest,
it is
coolest
sweet.
thing. And I think that for many of our younger people, we're directing this, I guess, to this group, because I think they need a lot of insight and mentoring. That what you may think is this throwaway work is some of the most foundational stuff that you're going to do in your entire career. All of these silly things, these silly projects that aren't worth my time, they're absolutely worth your time, because it gives you a training ground to figure out what's going to work in the business, work for you personally, work for you aspirationally, you know?
I agree. And I would also say that engaging in other types of work or relationships in work where you're not always working with the same people, it gives you a lot of opportunity to learn not only what works, but also what doesn't work.
Exactly.
So some of the key learnings that I've had were actually from maybe people that I had interacted with in the office that I really disliked the interaction. And I thought, when I get to their level, I will not act like that.
I will never do that again.
I will never do that.
Oh, how many times?
I know. And it's, I'm not saying that I have had tons of those experiences, but they're very clarifying moments, and they're character building, and they really hone who you are as a leader and who you aspire to be. And I still remember those lessons learned from early days, and you emulate the leaders that you respect, and you mimic those strong leaders that you've had, and then you know how to adapt away from other types of leadership styles that you felt haven't really worked or, haven't motivated you.
It's the other piece that goes along with that is perspective. So I can remember, much like you, I've been so blessed with having so many great bosses, leaders. My career is just full of them. And I'm blessed because of that, as are you.
Yes.
And I remember some of the folks that maybe didn't strike a real strong chord with me, and just watching them and thinking to myself, oh, what is wrong with these people? And then one day I found myself in that same spot. And then I understood.
Mm-hmm.
Then I understood. It looks easy from the outside, but it's really hard once you're in the role. It's hard to make decisions, especially when you're making decisions that impact so many people. How did you get through, Wayne? What kept you going?
Even today, I think about that because it's similar to what I've decided to do with my career. But to establish that at Princeton Ecom, we were, in a sense, pioneers. Mm-hmm. I look at an analogy of what someone does when they move to a new country, right? So when they move to a new country, they have the land, but there's no plumbing, there are no buildings. And at the end of the day, you have to figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. That could bring stress, but that also can bring excitement. I'm wired that way as a product person to build things that don't exist. Yeah. So having that background of building that doesn't exist to me is very exciting. So even though we knew the end game, we knew the vision, we knew what we needed to obtain. And that's going to be the ability for consumers to make payments in a digital framework, and realizing that the consumers are going to shift from using paper to checks. Mm-hmm. So knowing that, what's going to be the infrastructure that we're going to need to put in place? And one of the things, besides just from the product side, the whole aspect of moving electronic connectivity, increasing that, was really a side job. Mm-hmm. So it really wasn't defined within my job description, but I realized in order to create a value to the consumers, to create value to the company, we had to shift and drive the electronic connectivity up so that consumers can have a positive experience. And I think looking at the end result of what that's going to accomplish was motivating. Mm-hmm. And also liking what you do. Yes. It was a long commute from Queens to Princeton Ecom. I mean, I was remote, but during that time I was driving, 2.5 hours one way. What's going to motivate you 3 days a week in order to do this? Because you see the big picture. Yeah. I also saw the fact that as not only just for my own career path, but also as a team and as a company, we were doing some things that were quite innovative. A small company in the middle of Jersey. But when realizing that and seeing how I could be part of that, mm-hmm. and how even in my career 25 years later, I've drawn on some of those aspects, drawn on some of the things that I built at Princeton Ecom. Even when I left Princeton Ecom, I came back, and with other opportunities that I've leveraged in the industry, it was enough to drive me to do what I did and accomplished at that particular time. Yeah.
And so for our audience, I mean, we're not here necessarily to, kind of tell the tales of old, going all the way back to the late 20th century to talk about the way payments were made. But the translation of all of this is that we are in one of those times again now.
Absolutely.
And so for everyone that's listening, as we sit here and we think about, well, what is the world going to look like with AI and the technology and all the different advancements that are taking place? That's the type of environment, the type of magic, yep. stress, imagination that was going on back then that Wayne and I are talking about. And it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
It's funny how you see things in your life and you say, I either want that or I don't want that. And then you have to figure out how to make it work. But my goal, similar to yours, was I wanted my kids to see something different.
That's right.
I wanted them to grow up and see that, number one, you could have a job that you loved, mm-hmm. and still be engaged with your family.
Yes.
And two, I wanted them to see me and my husband working together.
Yes.
To make something happen.
That's right. And I think that's very similar to what we do in matchmaking, right? Yeah. We advise customers all the time that, when you're looking for your person, it's wonderful to come with this list of requirements, which a lot of people come to the table, especially women, come to the table with this laundry list of very specific attributes. Must be over 5'10", must, have hair, must have, right? All of these things. And it's wonderful. And then also we need to spend some time thinking about, are you friends with this person, right? Yeah. Do you want to spend time with this person? And what is it about that person that would make you want to spend time with them? When you think about my favorite movies coming out, who's the one person I want to go run to the theater with? It should be your spouse, or I hope for you that it is your spouse. And so what is it about that person that you share those commonalities around that you want to be together? And I think that's one of the best gifts that we can give our children, is to see a strong relationship built on friendship between their parents. I think that emulating that is one of the keys to them being successful then in their own relationships.
Of course. We live in such a disposable society.
We absolutely do. Yes.
And I think the immediate reaction when things go sideways or you run into a bump is like, okay, well, this isn't
Cut
working.
ties. Exactly.
Let's move on to the next. And what I've realized in my life, not just with my husband, but in relationships in general, is that the tough stuff is the secret sauce.
Absolutely. That's where the magic happens.
Yes.
That's the glue that holds you together.
Exactly. Because if you can get through that, whatever it is, then you can get to the next one. If you can get through the next one, you can get to the next one. And before you know it, through all these little mountains that you're climbing, you finally get to a place where you look out and you say, wow, look at all that.
Yes.
Look at that. And for people who are willing to throw that away, it strikes me. It's just striking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's hard to find.
Yes.
Right.
It is.
And so somebody to go with you go the distance for the journey of a lifespan, right? I know we're talking about, the moments and the minutes that matter. And also I think it's the measure of a life.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I mean, I think, I don't know how you would think about it, but for me, I can't imagine being at the end of my life and thinking that I wish I had 5 more minutes to be miserable.
Yes, exactly. Or 5 more minutes to work, right?
Yeah.
No.
Well, actually, I might want 5 more minutes to work.
That's true.
If I was working at something that was fun,
absolutely,
that I felt was engaging, that would bring people around,
absolutely, yes.
So, but I certainly wouldn't want to be miserable.
No, you would not want to be miserable. No. And I, thoroughly enjoy my work, and probably too much, and love to spend time with it. But I think that if it were my last 5 minutes, I'd want to just be with my husband, my children, and have them surround me and know that I'm filled with love and that they can feel that love from me.
Yeah.
It's not embarrassing that you can't do it yourself. It is hard. And we have to work together on it to bring out those important strengths that people have that they may not have even seen themselves. And I keep coming back, Karen, to the alignment with core values. That for me was the aha moment, that if we're not aligned with the core value for this moment in our lives, every day it's going to eat away at you little by little. You really do need to value that and do it. So for me it was, I also read a lot. If I had one book, we just recently moved, and the amount of books I brought to Goodwill and we donated was amazing. And Jackie would often say, another book. But it's so important to seek it. Life is a never-ending learning experience.
That's true.
And we need to keep doing that. And that helped me a lot. There are a lot of people out there that near enough are experts on this topic. And the more I read into what they had to say, the more I tried to apply. But it was hard. Yeah.
And I think that's actually a very good insight for our audience, is that you may struggle to find mentors in the workplace, but you can always find a mentor on the bookshelf. There's a book out there that will call to you, that will help open your mind if you're willing to pursue that journey and to read and to learn and to try to apply some of those insights to your own life. And I think the other piece that I wanted to just briefly mention here is this idea of catching oneself in the moment. I think that's actually a very good way of identifying if you are on that right track. When you feel that spark, when you feel truly alive, when you feel like you can't wait to get into work, or you're working on a project or an initiative, or with a group of people, whatever it might be, and you feel yourself come alive, how cool is that? And it takes a while sometimes to recognize that in oneself. So for the managers and the leaders out there, this is important for you guys, because I think that sometimes we can become so focused on our own that we fail to recognize that there are people around us that need that help to say, hey, look at you. You are absolutely on fire in the moment. And I guess I'd expand that, because it doesn't have to be a manager or a senior leader. It could be a colleague or a peer that says, you know what, I noticed something different about you. And it wasn't bad. It was great. What was it about that moment that turned you on?
Yeah, I'm glad. I was smiling as you were talking, because your best quote is, "You're on fire."
Yes.
And as you were talking, that's all I could think about. And people used to sometimes refer to the aha moment, that aha moment when the light bulb went off in your head. But I think it's about being on fire, and it full circle again with the self-awareness, alignment to core values and strengths. When the stars are aligned, if you will, and those things you are on fire. You can't help it.